We'll call the subcommittee for House Study Bill 1215, so we'll call, I appreciate that you're my ranking member reminding me of that every single time. We will call the subcommittee meeting of House Study Bill 64 to order. Representative Hite, Smith, and Representative Wills. We are scheduled until 1 o'clock. For those, when we get to the public comment section, if you could come up, sit at a table, and turn on the microphone so that people in the internet world can hear you, that would be fantastic. I will ask both of my members whether or not that they want to start off with any comments, or do we just want to start off with the public? Representative Smith?
Public.
Okay. If there's anybody that would like to speak on this bill, please come up. Like I said, grab a seat, hit the microphone. It is the picture of the person with sound waves going up. And a green light should light.
Got it. I'm going to actually sit on the other side because I'm looking right into the sun. Sorry about that. Emily Piper, representing the Iowa Association of School Boards. We are opposed to this bill. We have been opposed to efforts to do the same thing in the past. We think that there are some very legitimate reasons why the 5 districts utilize voluntary diversity plans to manage the makeup of students on socioeconomic status within their buildings. There is solid research that shows that having a diverse group of people from socioeconomic backgrounds in the same building, in the same classroom, actually helps improve student achievement. The second thing that I want to point out is I'm not sure that this is really a problem in terms of parents being able to open and roll out. We took a look at 3 years of data, and I'll just use the Des Moines School District as an example because I know that that is one that often comes up. The Des Moines School District has approved nearly 77% of the open enrollment requests over the last 3 years out of their district. The ones that were not approved were either late files, because there is a deadline, or there was not an open enroll request in that met the same socioeconomic and language status as the person requesting to go out. I think by taking this action, I appreciate that you want to give parents more choice, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more discussion about that on a number of issues. What you're actually going to be doing is setting up these buildings where you're going to make it more difficult to get to the student achievement that you want. Open enrollment isn't an easy process. It's not for everyone. We really would encourage you to keep this in place and allow those districts to manage their diverse population in the way that's best suited for them. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Margaret.
Green light, you got it. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Margaret Buckton from the Rural School Advocates of Iowa and the Urban Education Network. Both are registered opposed to this bill. Much of the same reasons Emily said, and I won't belabor the research, but I have copies of an issue brief that has the research cited in it for anybody who wants to see that. And there's a tipping point of poverty. When you hit 50 to 60% of the students in the school building, at that point, it starts to cost more to educate the entire student body. And as Emily told you, the student achievement results are not as successful as we all hope and want them to be. So the diversity plans help the school districts manage allocation of resources and making sure that we have good opportunities for all students to learn. One thing that's really important for us to know about the urban districts in this situation, which are Davenport, Waterloo, and Des Moines, they do their best to provide school choice within the school district, open enrollment to another building in the district, to a virtual program, to a different kind of academy. They have career and technical academies and other programs available. So there are a lot of options to parents within a school district, probably more than districts that have only one option in most of our other schools to open enroll to a neighbor. So in addition to that open enrollment out of the district that Emily mentioned, there are lots of accommodations that districts make to give parents choice within what kind of education their students get. Lastly, Iowa hasn't gone as far as other states to provide resources based on student need. So when we're talking about this in concentration of poverty, we should be talking about our school foundation formula and a poverty factor that should be in that formula. The national average is 29% more weighting per low-income student, and we don't have that. I just pulled this report off the website the Department of Education put out on high-needs schools. And back in Governor Branstad's Education Reform Act in 2013, there was a concept of a $10 million appropriation every year to help high-needs schools that have concentrated poverty, minority, and non-English speaking students. That has been postponed every year and never appropriated. So until we get the resources in place to make sure that we can educate all students to success, if we have the consequence of this kind of a bill, we would ask you to not consider moving this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Chris?
Good afternoon, Christopher Rance. I do happen to represent the Des Moines Public School District. My friends behind me here have already mentioned some of the reasons why we are opposed. We believe the data shows that there's not actually a problem, right? If 76% of our applications are approved, we don't see the challenge that the legislature is trying to address worthy that it is taking away a tool that we are using. It is worth noting, if you look at the data that I believe Emily shared with you on the number of apps received, apps approved, what was denied, remember, you're not just saying in this legislation that we can't deny someone from open enrolling out. There are times when we have denied people, not very often, from open enrolling in. Works both ways. You have students that want to open enroll out, we approve most of those. We have students that want to open enroll in, we approve most of those. But there are instances where we denied an application to open enroll in. You're also taking that ability from us away. And as you heard the previous speakers talk about, we're trying to manage a diverse population and keep some sort of balance within those school buildings. I actually think when you hear about a 76% approval number, that actually doesn't give Des Moines the credit that it deserves, because the first action when you have a parent who comes to us that has a challenge with a student and is looking for another opportunity, believes that that student could be better served by a different school than the one they're in, the first action we take is to find another school building, another opportunity for them within the district. So that's not reflected in these kinds of numbers. That's our first action to take, and oftentimes that solves the problem. In an urban setting, such as what we have in a school district with 30,000 kids, we have other opportunities within that setting to try to address those children's needs. And therefore, we think this tends to be using a sledgehammer to fix a very small problem that's going to take more tools away from the school board and the school administration and teachers to try to deal with their diverse population. We would like to, Des Moines is one of the, from an income basis, if you look around the state, we are one of the more impoverished school districts among the communities that we serve. With this kind of legislation passing, we think we only become more so. And if you have high expectations for us for achievement, we would ask you not to take away tools that might lead us to have even more problems in the future.
Chris, I have one question for you.
I hope I'm prepared.
Well, and if you can give me the information later, that's fine too. I don't expect to put you on the spot. Now, you said 77 or 76% of applications are approved,
Yes.
one or the other. So that would leave 23-24% that are not approved. Do you have a number of students that were denied the ability to open and roll out?
Denied the ability to open and roll out. Yes, I believe that's in that spreadsheet that Emily.
I did not forward that yet.
Oh, you did not forward that to them yet.
Sorry.
But you will.
Mr. Chairman, I will make sure that Emily's spreadsheet is made available to you, because it breaks down on a year-by-year basis from 2015 through 2020 the number of students that open enroll into our school district, out, what's been approved, what's been denied, both on an in and out open enrollment basis.
Thanks, Chris.
I was prepared.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of the bill. My name is Drew Klein with Americans for Prosperity here in Iowa. Again, we're in support of the bill, and as this proposal has come before the legislature in the last several years, I've gotten to hear the stories of whether it's the 23% or whatever number you want to put out of the families that are denied that open enrollment request. some of the reasons why. Some of them are parents who have noticed regression in student achievement. Others was a mom who worked in a neighboring school district and just for the ease of transportation wanted to open enroll their student out and was denied. Some of these are homeschool families that wanted to take advantage of a homeschool assistance program that had, quite frankly, just a better track record of working with those families. All of these diverse reasons, and I think that highlights really the issue, is families make different decisions for a multitude of different reasons. And I think what we're trying to do is kind of operate at this educrat level of we want to talk about systems and institutions and school buildings and what works to optimize for the whole, rather than looking at what works for individual families and what their needs are going to be as well. You take the example of a homeschool family. These people aren't contributing to the diversity of any classroom. They're not in the classroom. They simply want to seek opportunities that are going to enhance the academic outcomes for their students, and they're being denied as well. I think also going back to that 76% or 77% number in Des Moines, we also have to realize that that's not a great picture of the reality, because this has been going on for so long that a number of families just don't even attempt to apply for open enrollment. One of the other cases, and this gets brought up a lot in big school districts like Des Moines, is the desire for the school district to find them another option within the school district. Well, the Des Moines Register had a story a couple of years ago about a middle school student who was requesting an open enrollment due to what the school board described as pervasive bullying that was taking place around this student, and she was the victim. And it may be great to just put her or drop her in another school district, but what it doesn't alleviate are all of the other issues that surround that student and the bullying that took place. And some of it is just logistics. The school that's closest to her house makes logistical sense. The secondary option may be one where she can walk to a family friend's house after school or walk to an aunt's house. Open enrollment within the district isn't always going to be the right solution logistically for families like that. And I don't think that it's fair to assume that a school district is going to be able to solve all of those problems where a family and parents are much better suited to do that. So I can even grant that there's some really noble goals that are trying to be achieved through this program, but the reality is it doesn't work for some families, and those are the individuals that should have the freedom to make that choice. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Hi there, my name is Nick Laning, and I'm here on behalf of Stride Inc., formerly known as K-12 Inc., and we're the world's largest provider of online K-12 curriculum. We're previously the largest supplier of classes for Iowa Learning Online, and we're two of the original online curriculum providers for the two online public schools in the Clayton Ridge School District. Clayton Ridge has had a number of frustrated parents contact them about not being able to open enroll to the Iowa Virtual Academy. And that's due to this policy at hand in those districts. And the parents are expressing the want to be able to open enroll like everyone else across the state. The online school now has over 800 students. We did see a spike this year due to COVID-19. We had some parents leave some comments online if you want to review those. And we're just happy to be a resource on this issue. We know that online open enrollment is a small number in the overall scheme of open enrollment, but we still want to be part of the conversation.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Seeing none. Representative Smith, would you like to make some comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for joining and coming to the subcommittee today. I think that we're seeking the problem. It's hard for me to come to subcommittees when we're talking about issues that impact 5 school districts, and we're here at the legislature with our heavy hand weighing on the scale something that we know these local school boards and local entities have a better idea of what's best for their communities. I think, looking at this legislation, I think it will only continue to compound the educational inequities that exist. I think it continues to compound the achievement gap that already exists. I welcome any conversation that wants to really root cause the issues as to why we have diversity plans in the first place. I think if we're going to do this, and if we're going to have conversations about really what needs to happen, we should be looking at wage inequities and uplifting communities that have been really kind of starved of resources. But I don't believe that going against the wishes of the districts that are impacted by this, right, the 5 school board superintendents who talk about how they support this and what this does for their buildings and for their districts, I don't believe that we should supersede their day-to-day first-person knowledge of what takes place in their buildings. If we want to collaborate, right, to reduce the number of school districts with high percentage of free reduced lunch, I'm all in on that. But I do believe that here our job is to stand up for the people. It's really to not broaden the divide between the have and have-nots, right, but to shorten that gap, to make sure everybody has an equitable choice. I think the reality is that where we exist today, right, the divide between those who have and those who don't have much has never been greater. Our job as legislators is not to exacerbate that, but to reduce that. I don't think this legislation does that, therefore I cannot support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Smith. Representative Wills, would you like to make comments?
I'm going to take my mask off. I'm going to be very brief, much less than the 15-minute CDC guidelines by far. So you're exactly right, Representative Smith. We should look at the people. And so these schools, these bureaucrats in these schools are telling people, they're telling parents, they can't move their kids where the parent feels is a better fit for their kid. We need to look at the people. We need to look at the parents. Right now, that's not being done in these school districts, and so I'm more than ready, willing, and able to sign this and move it forward.
Thank you, Representative Wills. And then I will just finally close. For me, it does come down to the students. It comes down to all the students. And when we have a situation where we have parents that want to open enroll their kids to other public school districts, we have parents that want to give their kid, for whatever reason it may be, maybe it is because they want a different chance, maybe because a different school offers a different program, and maybe it's bullying. We hear a lot about that. But I think those parents should have that opportunity. I think parental choice is the ultimate local control. We talked about local control all the time. I think parental choice is the ultimate local control. And so I will be supporting this bill, but I appreciate everybody's comments today. There are comments online. I assume there's probably still comments being added because I printed off it a couple times today and there's been comments added, so I would certainly encourage the members to look at those as well. I appreciate the civil discussion we've had. I think that's a very important part of this Capitol, that we can have those conversations and those discussions. So with that, we will adjourn the subcommittee meeting for House Study Bill 64. Thank you, everybody.